In my layer stack over here, you can see that I've got my drawing on this layer and my grid on the layer above it. Now, it's a very good idea to lock these layers so that you don't end up drawing on them by mistake. Then just create a new layer and you're ready to start refining the drawing. I'm not quite so confident that this rough drawing is exactly right yet. So for this next step of the process, I think I'm going to continue to work in a very rough way by just blocking in elements and keeping the line work quite loose and gestural. I'm following the grid closely because it's well worth taking the time at this stage to get the perspective right. It's so much harder to try and fix it up later on once you've got your whole composition set. So as I work on these buildings here, I can start to add in new details and new elements like the rooftops, which are missing, and sort of things like that. And over here is a piece of awning sticking out. So I'm going to define it a little bit more. Now, there's something quite indistinct about this at this point, and I'm not sure if it's the angle that's wrong, but something's not really working. So for now, I'm just going to leave it as it is. And I think once the rest of the piece falls into place, then the areas that aren't working will just naturally jump out. So I'll leave that and I'm going to move on. In this area, I know that later on in the colour phase, I'll probably keep this a bit misty and atmospheric because this section's supposed to be very far back, sort of off in the distance. So the details of windows and things won't matter too much. Now for the windows on this building, I'm just going to follow the perspective lines, and this saves me a lot of hassle. I'm just going to sit each window onto this line, and it's really easy then to block in the basic shape. And then the door goes here. This building is actually going to be the tavern that the pirate stumbles out of, so this door needs to be fairly distinct. And actually, now that I look at it, immediately I can see what's wrong with that awning thing over there. It's actually way too big. It should really only be the height of one story of the building. So there you go. It jumps out at me right away once I put some of the other elements in. So I'm just going to erase it out of there completely. And I think I'll draw it actually over here, over the door instead. That looks slightly better. Then onto the rest of the far background, the dome, the steeples. And at this stage, you can turn your underdrawing off and see how you're progressing. It's very useful to do that, to see it without the rough and to see the layout becoming clearer. For some of the details that I want to work on now, I can just zoom in really close and go over them like this, like with this chain and anchor, for example. Now the ship might be tricky to draw out because I do need to reference this a little bit more. I want to actually Google tall ships or pirate ships or something like that and study the structure of what this ship should look like. For example, I know that the masts are going to cause major headaches if they're not right. For now, I'll block in the rough shape and go and do my research later. Now I'll check my drawing again without the rough underneath it. It looks fine, except this ladder here on the ship looks a bit wrong to me. It looks like it's way too forward. So I'll get rid of that and sketch it in again and make sure it's more or less in line with the elements that are next to it. There you go. That's pass number 2 complete. Hopefully the next pass I give this will be the last drawing pass, or near enough to the last one. Hopefully it'll be good enough for layout purposes, and then I can move on to colour and to paint.